Good afternoon / morning / evening, wherever you are listening to this right now. Welcome to Recruiting EQ episode 54. Success and Wellness panel. This is a new project. This is our second ever monthly Success and Wellness panel. Topic of the day is avoiding burnout. Thanks for joining us, everybody who's joining us live. Just a quick note that as of last week, we are officially also a podcast. So feel free if you somehow missed this. The tragedy of it is not that great because you can also listen to it wherever you listen to your podcasts after the fact. Thanks so much. Joining me is a lovely panel of awesome people who I am really excited to start speaking with. And I think a good way to kick this off is to maybe go around the room and we can all introduce ourselves a little bit and get the show on the road. Who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Hit it, Michael.
Thank you, Rick. Hi, guys. So I'm Michael Green. I'm the founder of Unico. We're based in Dallas. We specialize in placing the top 3% of IT talent. My background, I'm from a wonderful place in the world called Birmingham, England. I spent some time in London recruiting for investment banks. I got the chance to move to America back in 2016 to help open up an office for another staffing company. I've now been here for 8 years. I moved to Dallas 5 years ago and then finally took the plunge and started up my own company in March 2024.
Awesome. When you moved to Dallas, do you always sing the Dallas theme song in your head? Because I would have that problem, like from the TV show from the
80s. Not quite, no, but I might do now.
All day, every day, I would have been like, bah, 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 bah. Anyway, thank you. Who would like to go next? Go for it, me too.
Okay, perfect. Hi, Rick. I am E54. I'm managing director with Emergitel, and we are a proud Canadian staffing company now expanding and working with clients across North America. And our portfolio has been growing. And I've spent good 8+ years with Emergitel. So I've grown in my roles. I've grown in my functions. And in my current role as managing director, there's a lot of, and this topic is actually very exciting because, when you are managing and working with a team, with clients, there's a lot of things that you have to work on yourself and make sure your team is also feeling safe and productive. So I'm excited to listen to everyone and then give my share of contribution to this conversation.
Thank you, B2. It's funny you say proudly Canadian too. That's who knew that was going to be a highly political thing to say. It's just now suddenly it's like proudly Canadian. Okay, is everyone cool? Are we cool? All right.
I'm going to charge you 20% for that.
Boom, snap. And Marsha wins the mic drop. Marsha just leaves the podcast. It's not good. There you
go. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marsha King. I'm the VP of Growth at Town US. We are supplying physical therapists, occupational therapists, and speech and language pathologists, as well as respiratory therapists to skilled nursing facilities and hospitals nationwide in the U.S. Happy to be here.
Awesome.
Been on the podcast a couple of times now, so it's becoming kind of like a homey feeling for me. Thank you for inviting me, Rick.
100%. Happy to have you back, Marsha. I think we're going to make this feel like a real thing. We're going to say, Marsha's a friend of the show.
Hey!
Sounds like it, yeah.
You're all friends of the show, but yeah. But Marsha has been back a couple times and always has great things to add. So thank you all. Just to briefly introduce myself, if you are not super familiar with who I am, I'm Rick Coluccio. I'm the VP of Business Development for Raymond George Consultancy, which is an international rec-to-rec organization. I'm also the host of this program, which happens every Wednesday live on these channels that you're probably watching it on right now. But as we mentioned just earlier, it is now also a podcast you can listen to on Apple Music and Spotify, iHeartRadio, and 75 other podcast platforms I didn't know exist until recently. So there you go. Thank you all. So just before we dive in, I want to do a quick disclaimer. We tend to have great audience participation on these panels, and it's going out right now live to YouTube and LinkedIn and X. Recently X, the very divisive X. Hopefully this shows a healing thing, right? It's like we got Canadians, Americans. Amazing. This is where the healing starts, everyone. So anyway, if you are watching this, please feel free to comment. Give us your comments, questions, anecdotes to what you're hearing. If you want to add anything, it's very welcome. When there are lulls in the conversation, I'll happily read out said comments. Just a quick note, though, we are not on those platforms, right? So you can't message us directly from where we are right now, or if you have a very long comment, it might get cut off, unfortunately. We're going to keep your names out of it. We're going to keep your names confidential, just in the interest of privacy. I know a lot of you may be at work right now, and we don't want you to get you in trouble or get you fired for being on a Rec to Rec podcast during lunch. So that said, avoiding burnout and also just success and wellness, just to give the backstory of how this topic came to be. Michael, you and I were having a chat about the podcast and what we could be talking about, and the topic of avoiding burnout, in your case, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, came up. Do you want to maybe give a little bit of background on that yourself, and we can situate this for our good listeners?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So I've always been a massive believer in working really hard. You get out what you put in. I've always worked long hours. I then started Unico in March 2024, and I went 100 miles an hour, all out. I have a 2-year-old at home as well, which also brings in a challenge. So I was working really, really long hours. For probably 3 months, I was running on pure adrenaline. Didn't really feel burnt out, didn't really feel too tired. It then got towards probably about November time, and I felt burnt out, and I never really knew what that meant until it happened to me. So I lacked concentration. I wasn't being efficient. I wasn't being effective. I wasn't making the best decisions. I was almost just kind of getting through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And luckily, we'd planned to go to our friend's house for Thanksgiving, and it was the best 4 or 5 days, which I could have taken. I felt like a new man coming back from that. I then had Christmas back in England with my family, and again, came back in January and just felt like a new person. So I kind of very quickly realized that you can't just go. You need to actually put some stops in there and some breaks.
Totally true. You got to recharge your batteries. So that's interesting. So if we can actually situate too, from your angle, Michael, what was it that prompted you to go out on your own and start Unico? Because you were working, what was your position before you went off on your own to be your own business owner?
Yeah, so before I was senior vice president at the Frank recruitment group. So I was based here in Dallas. I managed a large team. It had always been a dream of mine to go out and start my own recruitment company. I'd always loved recruitment. I am one of those sad people who absolutely love it. Yeah. And I knew from probably about doing it for the first 1 to 2 years that one day I'll do this. And I finally got to the point in my life where I had enough savings to go and do it. I just got a house in Dallas. My baby was born. And I finally took the plunge to go and do it. And it has been absolutely the best decision I've ever made. Apart from obviously finding my wife and having my daughter. But I've really loved it. Yeah. 11 months in, touch wood, it's going really, really well. And I'm absolutely loving it every single day. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's great. There's something interesting there that I like to come back to too, which is it's like, just because you burn out on something doesn't mean you also don't love it and that it also isn't going really well. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's burning out, just do something else. So obviously you must hate it. It's the wrong thing for you and you're miserable. So just do something else, which is really the goal of this success and wellness panel, is just sort of like, if you always avoid everything hard, you'll never succeed either. So there's a tipping point there where we can't just, the two are not mutually exclusive, I guess, is the thing, right?
100%. Yeah. I still loved my job every single day. I was still building Unico. We still got great results. It was really just how I felt. I was working longer hours, but being inefficient in those hours. And I just felt exhausted. I was just mentally, physically. And obviously then you kind of finish your job. And then I've got a 2-year-old who rightfully so deserves playtime and attention and obviously care. And I kind of really just realized, right, just stop. Like just go and take a day or 2 days or maybe even 3 days. Try and turn off. Don't think about work. Don't reply to that Slack message or that email. And after about a day, I then kind of forgot about work a little bit, and then kind of got back to it after that. So, but though every time I came back from that break, I felt great again. I was back on it. I was sharp. I was back to working long hours. You got to know when to take the break.
For sure. And so let's maybe even go around the room on that front. Me too. What's your experience? I mean, you were saying you're excited to talk about this. What's your experience with burnout and how that factors into success in this business or any business, really?
You know what, Rick? The time I started working, burnout was not very acceptable to me. It was like, oh, if you're not stressed, if you're not burned out, you're not working hard enough. Like, why are you complaining? But then it is very encouraging to see that people are understanding and accepting that there is a limit to what you can do to yourself. Like, do you really want to exhaust yourself? That giving 110%, do you have to do it for everything that you put your hands on? Because in my experience, if you do things that you're really passionate about, you love them, that burnout stage, even when you're giving 110%, the burnout stage doesn't really come that soon. But then
Yep.
can you wait? Should you wait till the time when you really need some help and you need to figure out what to do next? What I did to myself, when I realized that, okay, I don't count myself into someone who work extended hours. I do when I have to, but luckily I work at a place where we do value work-life balance a lot, and that not appreciating anybody to just keep on their email responses after work hours. We say that if it's not urgent, if nobody's dying, then it can wait. You can attend to it tomorrow, which is a good thing. But then certain times your situations do show up that you're not expecting, and then there are days and weeks when you really feel very exhausted. So what do you do then? For me, I figured out a quick few things that I do. So this is funny, but the nearest coffee place to my home is like 6 minutes drive. And sometimes because everybody's working from my husband is at home as well, so he can see me when I'm very exhausted and I'm just not able to concentrate now because I have to get this done and this done and this done and go and jump on this meeting and this call. Then I go grab a coffee, I come back and I'm a very different person.
Yep.
He's like, what just changed in you? I just relaxed myself. I went out because I needed that fresh feeling and I needed to breathe in fresh air. So when I come back, the problems are still the same. Work is still the same, but my way of attending to it actually changes. So, and I enjoy working with that phase. Is like, okay, work has to go on, but then I at least for myself, I pick what needs my 100%, what I can delegate, what I can live with this giving maybe my 70% today.
For sure. So you just mentioned something that I think is very interesting. Are you working from home, Mita, or are you in the office?
Yes, I'm working from home. We
Yeah.
go to office often, but not every day.
That's the thing, is that this is something I hear often, obviously in my line of work, talking, to people about their jobs all the time, right? Is that the work from home thing, for those who really take to it and do well, your boundaries disappear pretty quick. There's no such thing as taking
Yes.
lunch. You're eating at your desk. You're like, taking calls in the shower practically. You know what I mean? Like, it's just work just consumes everything. So it's an interesting point that you raise. Actually, physically leaving your house is almost necessary to get that break. You can't just go in the other room because this is all your workplace now. It's everywhere.
That's a
And you
great.
know what, Rick? I'll add one quick thing to it. And I think because you brought in the lunch hour, when we started, like after pandemic, when everything was working remote, I think we just stopped respecting lunch break. We just stopped respecting it for ourselves and as well as for the team. And that's one good point to begin with. Like if it is lunch break, just stop pinging your team. Just stop bugging them. And stop bugging yourself. Just take that break. Do what you really need to do. Eat, go out, and then come back and then work again.
100%. 100%. Like the joke, the post-COVID joke that I make with a lot of people too is like, lunch. It sounds great. I've heard good things. You let me know how it is when you I'll try it one day, but it sounds awesome. Marsha, how are you feeling about the whole burnout topic? How do you feel about this? What's been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I have been in healthcare staffing specifically for 23 years. So you don't stay in any industry, I think, for that long without having gone through periods of burnout. And to Michael's point, my experience with burnout was the inability to focus, the inability to get simple things done. I'm like, I've done this 100 times, but I would just sit in this analysis paralysis or feeling very deflated. So I've gone through ups and downs in my career. And then when you go through, it's not just the work, but then it's the market that's affecting you. It's the internal company politics that's affecting you. It's your personal life issues that are affecting you. So, mindset is everything. So the biggest things that I have learned to implement are 100% planning time off. Usually I like to work about 4 weeks and then take a 3-day weekend. So it doesn't have to be some big, I actually don't take a lot of actual vacations. Because I do work fully remotely. I travel a lot. I go the places I want to go. But the first thing I do is I set up my workspace. If I'm in a different time zone, I make sure that I know what my work hours are. I just set my workspace. I'm not a girl that's going to take my computer and work on the beach. I don't do that. It's awful. I can't focus. It's just not how I work. But I might be at a beach location, but I do my work during my work hours. And then I just get to step out of the door and go to some new, beautiful tropical location. I make sure I have a couple of weekends planned. So I get to do day trips and do things like that. And that has really mitigated the burnout for me, because when people talk to me and they hear about my lifestyle, they're just like, wow, like, how did you do that? But, it took I had to cut a lot of things out to be able to have this lifestyle also. So it really, for me and the people that I talk to and we have these conversations, it's about, I say, my desire and goal was to design a life that I craved living. What makes me want to jump out of bed every day? What lets me go to bed rested every night? And so I think it's really taking stock in your actual life and how you want it to look, designing a day on paper. What does a perfect day look and feel like? And then just endeavor to have one perfect day, because if you can have one perfect day, you can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 perfect days.
That's it. I love that. Just to read a couple of the comments that are already coming in, and I love the comments coming in, so keep them coming, people. One lovely gentleman said, excited to be here. Love that. Insightful, Marsha, and I agree. I think that's very insightful. Here we have a question for the panel. How do we define work-life balance? Would it not be different for each individual? Like, what is that even anymore? I think that's a great question. In fact, that could have been the title for this. In fact, how do you guys feel about what is work-life balance anymore? Even thoughts?
It's a great point. I do agree that work-life balance is different from person to person. And I think that people will hit different burnout levels at different points. And, some people can just go and go. Some people need to get that balance. For me, work-life balance is fitting in the bits I have to. So obviously, high performance at work, driving Unico to be successful, fitting in health and fitness. I go to the gym 3-4 times a week, simply for mental health, really, if anything. And of course, then with the family, taking care of my daughter, going out with my wife. If I can fit all of that in a working week, that's work-life balance for me. It's not so much, right, I'm going to get work-life balance by working 9 to 5 and that's it. I'm going to fit all the things around it in the week to achieve the things I need to in 7 days.
Yep. How do you guys feel? Me too. How are you feeling?
I can actually, So, Rick, this is how I see work-life balance. My personal time, so my work should allow me to have some personal time with my family for myself. But on days when I have more to do and I'm determined to accomplish more during my day, my personal life should also be able to allow me that balance. So this is this theory that I follow, which is like, whatever I have to do, I have to do. If it is my work, I'll do it. If it is possible for me to delegate, because today I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling exhausted, I'll delegate it. If I cannot delegate it, I'll just evaluate. Does it have to happen? Is it needed today? Is it adding any value or just adding to the to-do list? If it can wait for tomorrow, it will wait for tomorrow. But I follow the same principle in my personal life as well. Like this allows me to this applies to people who live with me. It's like, today I need time to focus on this. This is important for my work. So these pieces of my job, and I think we all have shared job responsibilities at home as well. I would want you to take care of this. I will not stress myself that, oh my God, I have to do this. And then I'm also supposed to do this and I'm expected to do this. I intentionally put less pressure on myself.
Mm-hmm.
So if I need to ask for help, I ask for help.
I think that's an interesting point. I mean, obviously, you know, work-life balance comes up from an employer perspective a lot, right? Like, what's the culture like? Oh, we value work-life balance. Of course, nobody says we don't value work-life balance at all. Come work for us. It's the 80-hour weeks. We pay you nothing. I mean, no one says that. But it's interesting that you raised that if we're taking it out of, like, obviously employers can't ask for this, but if you expect to have flexibility in your work, then having flexibility in your personal life is kind of key as well, which is interesting. That I think there is like a fear from employers that I get, that when people ask for work-life balance, what they're thinking is that they have a very inflexible personal life. They have demands that are inflexible, and that is a turnoff to employers, which then makes certain future employees think, oh, they're slave drivers. It's like a kind of an echo chamber effect of negativity sometimes in this conversation.
And I've been there. Actually, I have been at the spot where I was exhausting myself because work has to happen. And then in my personal life, I was like, okay, I'm supposed to do this. There were list of tasks assigned for me in this to be done in the remaining 2-3 hours of the evening. And I was like, okay. At some point, I said no to a lot of things. I was like, we need to figure out a way, because I cannot manage everything. Because I am managing everything. It's like I'm not giving my 100% at work. I'm not even 100% happy here in my family life. So we need to figure out a plan. I figured out that plan for myself, and I'm happy with the place where I am today.
Yeah, that's great. That's good advice, I think. Marsha, how are you feeling about the work-life balance? What does that mean to you?
So I take anywhere from 7 to 10 trips a year. And like I said, I'm working this whole time. It's very rare that I actually take a lot of time off of work. So for me, I travel on a Saturday or Sunday. That's usually my preference. And I use those travel days. I call them field trip days. You know, when you were a kid, your parents didn't have to get you up out of bed. It wasn't hard to go to school because you were going on a field trip, right? You're going to the zoo, you're packing your lunch, you get to ride the bus with your friends. So I look at those travel days like field trip days. I used to kind of look at them like, oh, you know, this is a hard day, and when do I rest? And I'm like, this is my rest. You know, it kind of energizes me because I'm going somewhere new, or I'm going to visit family and spend quality time with them. So for me, it's really been changing perspective about what work is, because we're not just talking about the work we do at our desk. Everything we do is work, right? Preparing meals is work.
Yep.
Cleaning your home is work. Going on a trip takes work. So all of it takes work, and it's just, for me, it has really been about changing my mindset that when I'm cooking, it's about nourishing my body, and it's not a chore to do, right? And then when I'm traveling, it's, oh my gosh, I get to go here and spend a week with my kids. My second grandbaby is due next month. So I'll be traveling to go and spend time with my son and my daughter-in-law, my grandson, and my new granddaughter. And so things like that just inspire me. So I look at things differently now to say, I get to have this opportunity. And what that also means is I want to be super dedicated in my work day, because I know that I also have these beautiful things to look forward to. So for me, the planning element, I mean, I'm a true Sagittarius. I like to be on the move. So when I have a trip or two planned, then I get super excited. If I open my Airbnb and it's like, you have no trips planned, I'm like, we need to change that right now.
Awesome. You know, it's funny. I love what you're saying. And I just want to point out, I feel like there's like a side debate happening in the comments. There's like a separate panel happening.
Oh, interesting.
So we have like the work-life balance comment again was, how do you define work-life balance? Would it not be a different answer for each individual? And then we have someone else.
And I want to speak to that, not just each individual, but for each individual in different seasons of your life.
Yeah.
I'm in a different season of my life today than I was 15 years ago when my kids were smaller. I'm in a very different space now. I did not travel this way many, many years ago. Many people traveled when they were younger. I didn't. I had children when I was younger, so I was a mom very early. And so now it's like, this is my season of life to travel. So I'm able to balance it differently now. And I also wanted to mention and ask everyone on the panel, what are you paying for to learn? Because if you're not paying to learn something, you might not be exercising that recreational side of your brain and body. So for instance, I still pay for dance lessons all the time. Salsa classes, bachata classes. I teach kizomba. I also pay to learn Spanish. I live in Medellin, Colombia. I'm still learning my Spanish, my second language. So those are two areas that I always am paying to somebody to teach me more. And that's making sure that we're checking off that hobby box. So what are you guys paying to learn right now?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, I can take that. You know what? I've recently, and that I was talking to a lot of people, and I could hear a lot of conversations where people were encouraging that, what are you doing for yourself? And I was sitting with myself like, what am I doing for myself? Except for going out and going for those some vacations that I take in a year, I wasn't really doing something for myself. And I picked up two things. I am now paying to go and not really go. Everything is online and virtual. To actually, I've started investing in meditation programs, the calmness and those breathing techniques, and they work. They work. Like
They
even
do.
in chaos, you work with these because you have your focus and your attention on one thing at a time. And then very recently, I've just enrolled myself for a table tennis lesson, which I've started learning recently because I wanted to do something in physically as well, being active. So yes.
Wonderful.
That's a great question, Marcia. And to be honest, I've been for 12 months now so all in on Unico. I actually haven't done anything in terms of myself, right? I feel like I've been to the brim with the things which I said earlier in terms of family, fitness, and work. So that is definitely a key takeaway for me from this. I do think that you nailed it earlier, though, talking about going on trips. So I find if I have anything planned in the next 12 months ahead, like a weekend away here or even a family holiday or something, I feel way more motivated. I'm really looking forward to that kind of break and that thing which isn't work. Laptops away, I'm completely focused on the trip. If I don't have anything planned, it just feels like a constant hamster wheel of just non-stop work and the next task and the next goal to go and achieve. You need those kind of stop gaps to be able to go and just completely unwind and just stop.
Totally. And the comments keep coming in, which I love. So the debate comment I was referring to before was in response to would it not be different for each individual? Someone put to that person, we might have different life hobbies, and that's true. But at the end of the day, the general idea behind work-life balance, is that not the same for everyone? And even at that point, I'm like, I still don't know. And here's my further question to you guys is, I feel like the work-life balance question, when it comes down to like, is this job, what's the culture like, work-life balance? I feel like at the core, it's like hours. What hours are you going to be? Am I going to be asked to contribute more than I'm being compensated for? I feel like that's the sort of core argument, which is a tough one because but am I reading that wrong? Do you guys see this differently maybe than I do?
You're right, I think, Rick. I mean, so my previous job, I managed large teams, and we had generational differences of people coming through, and it definitely felt like newer people coming in linked work-life balance to the number of hours that they're working, right? So I should only work 40 hours a week maximum because of my work-life balance. So I've put quite a bit of thought into this, and for me, work-life balance is about the individual setting their career goals, whether that's over a quarter or 12 months or even 3 years. They're your goals. Go and do the work you need to achieve your goals. And outside of that is then your work-life balance. So if you want to be a super high-performing top achiever, your goals are probably different to somebody who is low-level or mid-level, right? And that is perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Top performer is probably going to work longer hours because they have different goals and then fit their life around it. So it's not hours based. It should be based on the individual and actually what they want to go and achieve.
Yeah, that's a good insight. How do you guys feel about it too, me too, and Marcia, the work-life balance question?
Rick, I was having a conversation with someone just a few weeks ago, and I'm not sure if this is going to answer the question, but their concern was at their place of work, they were asked to go back into the office. So from a 100% remote model, they were asked to report into the office 3 times a week. And when they brought that argument with their manager, it's like, I want to say, like, this is causing me a lot of hassle in the traffic, spending a lot of hours in commute because I actually moved out of city. And the manager accepted it. But then he also mentioned that, you know what is happening to me now? I'm expected to be working longer hours.
Mm.
And when I brought that concern to my boss again, and I was told that you're saving time on commute, what is the problem? And if that is the concept of work-life balance, that if you're saving time on commute, the expectation from you is that because you're not commuting to the office, so it is an okay and a fine expectation to expect that you will be working longer hours. Now that is where I see a problem with work-life balance, because this is coming with a mindset actually,
Yep.
and that's a conversation you have to have either with the place that you're working with, like let's just be honest, what works and what doesn't, and also with yourself, like is this the place where I belong? Because when you're doing it for yourself, because if you are very determined to achieve and reach a goal, things don't exhaust you quick enough, and you don't mind investing more time. But when it is, when it is expected from you, and it is not needed, like I can survive without it, I can sustain without it, I can succeed without it, but because it is needed, I have to do it. That puts a different sort of pressure.
Yep.
And then even if you are at work for 8 hours, you're really not productive.
It's a huge question, right? With the work-life balance, I know there's some places that I've heard. I don't really have any clients of my own where this is a concern, but places that I've heard where they literally it's either time that they want more of your time to equal that of people who are commuting into work, or you get paid less money to work from home to compensate for the travel that people have to do. But either way, they're sort of valuing the commute time, the displacement, and whatever else as a function of like your compensation has to do with your direct time, your hours. Like it's such a direct correlation with like hours and compensation versus results driven comp. And again, if it's a company ethos, I mean, what are you going to do, right? To your point, means you have to be like realistic. Like, is this the right company for me? If that's how they're going to think, but it's a fine line though too, because I also feel like there are a lot of candidates out there who, because there's so much change, they have a bit of a tunnel vision, right? And they're mostly thinking about things in terms of what can I get? What am I going to get for my time? Almost like rescue animals who've not been treated very well, kind of thing. Like they're so I hope that's not insulting to anyone, but like they're just so like, I'm probably going to get screwed over at this job, so let me just get as much as I can out of it, which is so negative. But as opposed to what can I give, what can I do, right? They're not thinking like, what can I achieve, what can I do here? It's more like, what am I getting for my time? And that bad attitude on both sides, I feel, is where this work-life balance talk gets messy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Jean, thank you for the comment. She was saying, it's that get to mindset. I come to my desk every day and I'm like, I get to do this. I'm very blessed and honored that, I'm part of this startup right now. I get to bring these years of experience to the table. I get to continue helping therapists. I think I told this story once before, but I'll kind of revisit it on my why for healthcare staffing. So some years ago, I was also working in an organization staffing therapist, and I placed Dakota as occupational therapy assistant in a facility in South Carolina. Little did I know, she ended up taking care of my actual grandmother.
Oh, wow.
And they got to talking, and she said something about, oh, my recruiter's name is Marcia, and my grandmother was like, oh, my granddaughter's name is Marcia. It's not an everyday common name these days. And so they got to talking and linked it up that I was the same person. And so that's that moment where I've never been a healthcare worker. I've never been a nurse, but it made me value what I do so much, because I know somebody else's loved one is getting taken care of because of the service that we provide. So when I show up every day, I get to do this. When I go on trips, I get to do that. When I spend time with my family, I get this beautiful opportunity. So it really, to me, is all about our mindset, is going to shift, where that energy goes. And what do they say? Where attention flows is where your energy goes. So it's all in how we view things. Honestly, it's about mindset.
100%.
But
go ahead, Michael.
Sorry, I do agree, Marsh. Yeah, and I think that that work-life balance is obviously important to all of us, but it comes back to what is a company's expectations of the individual, right? And then not ours, because if that person is overachieving or just achieving the expectations, the hours doesn't matter, and the work-life balance is then clearly correct. If the person is underperforming, maybe the person needs to go back and address the work-life balance, because it might be too much life versus work, obviously causing a underperformance. So you have to be able to almost kind of self-assess and kind of take a step back and adjust your schedule to work out what is the best work-life balance for me and my goals.
Yeah, being honest with ourselves about what we need in the season of life that we're in. Not everybody, to your point, someone in their early 20s might be like, okay, I have to hustle right now. To this point, that's my son's mentality. My younger son started selling cars at 19. He was earning six figures immediately. He bought his first house at 20. He's like, Mom, I want to be a finance manager. I'm gonna work really hard these next 2 years. I'm like, set a goal, babe. I'm like, the minute your mind can see it, you can achieve it. So if you have that vision for yourself, and then you just reverse engineer what you need to do and talk to the people around you, get their support. I mean, you can certainly do that. So he's just like, this is what I want to do now before we have children. He just got married to his high school sweetheart, last month. So it's like, he's got this like dedicated vision, and he knows exactly what he wants to do. And he's not taking a bunch of vacations. He's not taking a lot of trips right now. I've asked them to come and visit me, and they, he's just like, Mom, I can't do it right now. And I get that, and I respect that.
Yeah.
I have to say this, Marsha, I'm falling in love with this phrase. Work-life balance actually is very different depending on which season of your life you are in. And we have to be adaptable. Sometimes we just get too reserved and restricted with our thoughts. Like, okay, I was doing it 2 years ago. Why can't I do it today? I was doing it 5 years ago. What is the problem today? We have to start accepting that things change, your expectation change, your caliber and your capabilities also change with time, because I love that.
Wonderful.
100%. So I'm going to say something that I'm not going to name this person, but I'm going to say something that happened. Now, we started this by saying, or a couple of us mentioned, that the burnout conversation is almost sort of like a newer conversation that you can have. And Me Too, you hit this hard, where it's like, even a few years ago, it was just sort of like, if you talked about burnout, it's like, well, if you're not burnt out, you're not working hard enough. And that it was an expectation. You couldn't really talk about it. Like, talking about burnout was for people who were just not workers. They were lazy, I guess, let's say, or whatever, right? Didn't want to achieve anything. It was a negative connotation. In sending out invites for this event, I got a couple of comments to the tune of, if you can't figure out how to work really hard and succeed without burning out, that's natural selection. You deserve to not succeed. You deserve to fail.
Ooh,
you can't figure your stuff. Oh yeah. So there's still, and I went back. Whoa, shots fired. Do you want to be on the panel? Didn't want to be on the panel. Yeah. But I asked them, like, do you want to be? Because I'd love to unpack that, with some people. But certainly there's still like, and again, I also am wary that you do talk to some people who use terms like work-life balance and whatever else to avoid or to try to get away with doing less, working less, and being able to do whatever they want. I don't think that that's the majority of people. I think people do want to do well in life and whatever, for the most part, and get stuck. But how do you feel about this stigma, or like that some people even have a fear of talking about this earlier in their careers or whatever, for fear of being stigmatized in some way? Ouch. Yeah, right. Ouch. Like, yeah, you deserve to fail. It's not everyone can succeed. It's competitive out there, and if you burn out, then you're just a weak link in the pack, and see you later. How do we feel about that attitude?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. That's a really unfair statement, because you have no idea what's going on in that person's home life, with their medical conditions, with their family's health and wellness. You have no idea. So unless you have walked in that person's shoes, how can you say that? I mean, that to me is someone who, that comment seems to come from someone who hasn't yet had a major trauma or crisis in their family. And, until you have a scenario like that, there's no way to speak to the reality of what someone's mental health and physical health and conditions are. So, I mean, that's fair. If they want to run and burn themselves into the ground and finally get to that aha moment, I guess that's okay. But none of us know what battles each other are facing at the end of the day. So a little compassion goes a long way.
Good point. How you guys feeling about that attitude, Michael and Me Too?
Yeah, I think it's quite tricky to manage as especially in a job like recruitment. If you had a team of 20, 30 people, to Marsha's point, you must show empathy and actually understand what the person's going through and talk to them. And maybe somebody has a child and needs to come in a bit later and leave a bit earlier, and because of the home situation. And so you have to be able to understand that, and it kind of links back to, as long as the person is a good employee and meeting expectations, well, be flexible towards that. I think the problem comes though where people start taking advantage of it and using the term work-life balance to basically not do their job effectively. And it's
right.
I can't perform the job because it's impacting my work-life balance. Well, if there is no rationale behind it, they've got a justification, it becomes really hard to manage them. So I think we've got to be careful not to fall in the trap of kind of using something which is a really important topic to people, and basically abusing it.
Yep, for sure. Almost a bit disrespectful, right? For the people who are really going through something, to just be like, "Ooh, yeah, me too. Work like I need also special dispensation." You know what I mean? And just like try and get away with it sneakily.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's the main problem. You got somebody who genuinely needs to talk about it and has a work-life balance situation.
Yep.
Like what Marsha was saying, but then somebody else who's just completely throwing around a hot phrase at the moment to try and work the system, essentially. It's difficult.
And I'll add to that, Rick, because the severe the injury, longer is the recovery time. So anybody who is not accepting it today, that this is an important conversation to have, I wish them good luck. But there is a point in time, like if you really are exhausting yourself at work everywhere, then there is a time that we, there's a point when we realize that something is not working out. Like we're doing our best, the results aren't showing. It's because you're giving your best, but you're so exhausted already that you're not putting the right effort in the right way, in the right thing. And to Michael's point, and it happens, like it is a shared responsibility. I'm responsible for myself, and I'm also responsible for people who work with me. And when somebody in your team comes and tells you that for any reason, this is where I'm struggling, are you giving them that safe space that yes, they can work in a way that is suiting them today?
Yeah.
Again, making sure that they're not taking advantage of it. And it is not becoming a norm in your workplace that everybody is trying to get work-life balance conversation to get things their way. But it should start with an individual responsibility. Like I should know what is working out for me and what not. If I need to speak today, who should I go to? And I should be given that safe environment to talk about it, discuss it, whether it's my work, whether it's my family. And it should start from me first. And when I realize it, I am able and capable of giving that space and having that conversation with people around me.
Yep, agreed. Do you guys think that there's a correlation, or like a lot of the sort of Gen Z, particularly aged candidates that I personally speak to and that you see articles about, the sort of demands and sort of desires and whatever of the Gen Z aged candidate in the workforce right now? That there is, or millennials, like I'm technically a millennial, but they call me a geriatric millennial. They moved the age dot and put the word geriatric in front to 1981, when I was born in January 81. I'm like, thanks, internet. Thanks. But anyway, do you guys think that there's like some credence to that feeling of work-life balance is like what's being asked is more than what is being compensated, has ground in places where, for example, if you need to work 40 hours a week and then put in extra time to hit your goals and whatever else, but you know that there's no path to you ever being able to afford to own a house. There's no path to, do you feel like the certain sense of hopelessness that comes with people who are in, let's say, large cities and getting paid like not much, and they see people who are way down the chain not making that much more than them? Do you feel that it's a demotivating thing, or is this all to a large extent attitude driven, like you're saying, Marsha, that it is possible to sort of get to that place, and Michael obviously and everyone, and me too, you know what I mean, like to get to that place in switching your attitude to sort of try to navigate these waters better?
Oh, I think you always should be on the lookout for what's best for you and your family. At the end of the day, you know, just like an organization can come in and say, hey, we're making 20% cuts, you know, and you could be affected by that. You should always be looking at who to promote, in your own life, who to demote in your own life, what positions or cities or states that aren't working for your lifestyle. As a single female, I began traveling the world solo and found a place that I could call home outside of the US. And it made more financial sense for me, and it helped me mitigate the burnout because I didn't feel like I had to run as hard at work to keep up with the lifestyle that was really comfortable for me. That was a hard choice to make. When I told my family I'm moving to Colombia, South America, they're kind of like, huh? Like, we don't understand. But when I explained to them, this is helping me save for retirement, this is helping me take the trips I want to take and spend more time with you guys, or this is helping me relax my nervous system so that I can perform better in my work. They understood that I was making choices in a very logical and rational space. And we have to always be looking out for what's best, because if we're not healthy, we can't serve anybody else around us.
For sure.
Completely agree. Yeah, your family and your health come first, and you then work your work-life balance out around that, right? And again, that is different from person to person. I do think that the generations have a different viewpoint on this. When I first started my first job in 2012 in London, it was very much everybody works to the bone, and they're in there at 7:30. You don't leave until 8 o'clock, at least Monday through Wednesday, and Thursday was always in the pub opposite the office, because that's the culture and that's the generation. Where now I find with a new generation, people are prioritizing the gym more than going to the pub, right? And they are looking to get balance between seeing friends and seeing family, which is absolutely fine, right? It's things have shifted, I think, from generation to generation.
And everybody's situation, and I agree to your point, Rick, because when we look at it from that angle, we were at that situation and at that point, and then people are at that place where they have to secure a lot. You mentioned having a house, you mentioned having a particular sort of lifestyle that they want for themselves, and yes, you need to work more, you need to earn more, you need to give to your work more. But then, should you stop talking about work-life balance completely? Because now you're like, I have to work, I have to work, I have to give, I have to get everything that I. Work-life balance this is how I see it, and this is how I experience it in my day-to-day. It does not always happen to be that I'm shutting down from work completely and I have all this time for my personal life, or I'm so much committed to my personal life that I'm not able to focus on work. You know what I mean? So it has to start with something really small. Like, I am working 12 hours a day because today I have to, but can I just take a little break in those 12 hours? After those 12 hours, can I actually hit gym for some time? And can I actually go out and have a conversation with someone that I enjoy talking to? It's about resetting yourself, especially your mind. Because what you have to do, you have to do. Like, there's no escape from it. If you are committed to achieving something, you have to put the work that's needed for it. But there are two ways of working. Like, you're exhausting yourself and you're always stressed, talking about it as if, oh my God, I am caught up in this. Versus, this is what I want to do and I am enjoying it. You have to find out ways of how do you work enjoying it.
Yep, for sure.
I want to speak to this too. I started doing something that Martha Beck, she's a life coach. She worked with Oprah many, many years ago. She said this many years ago. She said, if we would just play a game of hot and cold with ourselves for 3 to 5 days, when you are doing something, like, is it making you feel like constricted? Like your face is, I call it squinchy face, like, ew, like I don't want to do this. Or are your shoulders up and is your heart open? Are you expanded? Is your face smiling? So if you will pay attention to what your body's telling you, you will align with what's right for you so quickly. And our bodies are so intelligent. And many times we try to overthink. To your point, me too, is like, what do I have to do? Like, who said you have to do anything? Yeah, so we get caught up in these patterns of behavior and somebody else is doing it. And we're keeping up with the Joneses. It's like, whoa, hold on. What is the life that I desire in this season right now? And what would I need to change in order to make my life look more like that? And if you just start asking yourself those types of questions, like, did I even enjoy this day? And if I did, great. What did I enjoy? And if I didn't, what didn't I enjoy? How can I outsource that? How can I get rid of that? How can I do less of that? So if we just start to begin to ask ourselves those questions, we're going to get into an alignment and a vibrational match with a life that is so much more fitting and healthy and expansive for us personally. And that makes us better in the workplace.
And not a lot of people realize it, but it is really important. That's where it all begins.
Yeah, I think that Me Too nailed it, where she said that if you're enjoying what you're doing, you have work-life balance, right? You know, when I'm there working at 9 o'clock at night because I've chosen to and I'm enjoying it, that's great. If I'm there at 9 o'clock and I'm hating it and I'm not being productive, just stop, right? You're not doing yourself any favors. I think one thing which I did right from the start, which really helped my work-life balance, I have a big whiteboard in front of me and I've got like mini milestones for 12 months to go and achieve, like small things like do your first placement or send your first CV or achieve this financial goal, whatever it is. And then for those milestones, I then have like breaks in there. So it's like, you know, go for drinks or go for dinner or take a long weekend or do whatever I want to do. But it's just almost kind of like hitting the milestone, taking a break, enjoying yourself, getting back to it. And that really going to help me find some balance.
I can't wait to hear what your new hobby is going to be, Michael.
Nor me, Marsha. I've got to think about it first. I'll take up dance classes.
Hey!
Dance classes for everybody. There you go. Dance classes for all.
Yes.
You know, what do you guys think of this too? So like, I agree with absolutely everything that we're all saying, but I also think that we're among statistically the few, the proud, the people who actually like doing what we're doing for a living. But you look at stats and a lot of people hate their jobs or feel trapped or feel like they're stuck in a rut or whatever. And we had an earlier episode where Julie, who was not here today, but Julie, who is the owner of Raymond George, the co-owner of Raymond George, was saying that she feels like a lot of times it's important to get to know yourself for real and get to have that honesty, right? Because a lot of times we self-invalidate, to use a term I like to pull from all of one of my hobbies is learning about psychoanalysis and psychotherapy. But anyway, so the self-invalidation is sort of like, you know, like you're saying, Marsha, you check in with yourself to see how you feel. But a lot of us don't like what the results are there.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
And we have
that you nailed it, because sometimes when we don't feel good but then we think we should feel good, now we start fighting with ourselves, but just ignore that, and it's like, no, don't ignore that your body is literally trying to tell you something and get attention so that you will address the issue. And when we don't address the issue, that's when disease comes in, guys. Like, this is just a fundamental, like, just for your basic health and wellness, like, we need to be listening to what our body is telling us.
Yeah, your body, your unconscious. I think a lot of people are invalidated from a young age, right? And so if you're invalidated from a young age, then you go into the workforce and you're like, I don't like this. I'm super anxious and I don't like talking to people, for example. It's either something to explore or it's just kind of like, well, there's other jobs where you don't have to talk to people every day, or you know what I mean? Like, but granting yourself to listen to those results, I think, is really important to aligning yourself to a career that you get to be in that state. Me too, and Michael, like you were saying, where I'm working till 9 p.m. and I'm fine with that. Like, I'm not, burning out. I feel great.
It's that flow state, right? Like, Rick, you were mentioning my mural. I had this mural painted when I first moved in here almost 3 years ago now. And when we were doing the mural, like, it didn't matter to me. Like, I'm just observing, but I'm like cleaning the house at the same time and I'm arranging things. And I didn't look at the clock once. It was so fun and creative and interesting. And so when we're doing work where we're not watching the clock, and before we know it, another hour has passed, but we're feeling energized, that's the state. I mean, once you hit that flow state, it's so beautiful.
Indeed. I have a couple comments I just want to address because, again, I love that people are being so willing to participate. So someone had said about the negative comments that I got about this topic. That type of comment comes from a comfortable vantage point. Realize that people can't always put themselves in a position to fail. One can learn from the experience by continuing on the path or awakening to a path of a different pursuit. Totally agree with that. To play devil's advocate for a brief moment, I also think some people aren't in a position of comfort. Maybe they did just go through something, and so they're just cranky. That's also possible. Maybe they themselves have been dealing with this, and so I hit a nerve because they're just kind of like, well, I had to go through all this, so you guys should too. And that's also possible. I get that.
Yeah.
Removing the generational tribalism that is rife on social media, I find that people begin to realize that work-life balance is a moving target. As Marsha alluded, it changes naturally based on changing needs. Having time for happy hour after work in New York was a priority. Now it's not as important, right? 20s me had a different view on work-life balance than 50s me. So, but yeah, back to the sort of moving target.
Well said, Greggy.
There you go. And I am hardest on myself is one that came in. And work-life balance is sometimes an elusive creature. I think maybe it is sometimes a reflection on ourselves, right? Like, even though it's your employer that has these demands, I think that sometimes, it's also self-imposed pressure that we put ourselves in these situations. Many
times, actually, Rick, I'm sorry to actually, but I wanted to add this because a lot of times your employer might not be even expecting you to work that hard and work that long. It's just something that we impose on ourselves, like I have to prove something to myself, or I'm trying to just follow someone and trying to do more than I should be doing or what is being asked. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize, but we keep doing it. We keep doing it until we reach a point where it's like we complain and the other party is like, we never asked you to. You were choosing it. You were choosing to do it. So we never stopped you because it was a choice. And then we make it sound like, oh, did I have a choice? I never knew I had a choice.
Yeah. Just on that as well, I kind of put into one side what employers expect of you. I still think it's the case that for people who want to be high performing and achieve a lot, do have to go above and beyond, right? But these days we are far more aware of our mental health, even our physical health than back when I started again in 2012. Nobody talked about mental health ever.
Right.
Yep.
But now everybody talks about it. So it's almost like people are kind of conflicted where one hand they know that they have to go above and beyond to compete and to win. On the other hand, it's, well, I also know about my mental health and my physical health and my balancing my family life now. So the world's shifted a bit. And I think that that's where people are really struggling with this topic of work-life balance and burnout, and obviously why we're all here talking about it now.
Well, yeah, and Michael, on that topic, right, we've talked a lot about, because of the comments and everything, about it from an employee perspective, or like employers to employees. But the genesis of this conversation with you and I was really about, you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, like there's no employer to report to, right? You're in charge of your own goal setting. Do you feel like that's changed how you feel about the work-life balance question for yourself from when you were an employee, even as a SVP, and now that there is no one up there, it's just you, it's the sky's the limit?
A little bit, yeah. So I've always had this mentality that I've got one career, one chance to be successful, one chance to achieve my dreams and goals. So I've always gone completely flat out, or I thought I had. I then started Unico, and I had nobody to tell me to, take a break, or that, great job, Michael, or actually improve this, Michael. So I was always very conscious of, am I doing enough to be successful as an entrepreneur? Which I think really kind of fed into it. And that's why kind of this has now been brought to the forefront for me, of like, I'm probably working harder and longer hours than ever, because there isn't that kind of checks and balances there. So now I've had to really think about it and think, well, am I feeling burned out? Am I lacking concentration? Am I being, moodier than usual? Right? It's you have to be aware of it, because as an entrepreneur, it's always in your mind saying, am I doing enough to compete and to be successful? And for me, my biggest nightmare is looking back in 5 years' time saying I could have worked harder, or I could have done something better to make Unico a better success. So it's really kind of getting that balance between all of it.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, like that's something that I feel like is they're in the work-life balance conversation. I feel like employers are often villainized and employees are often villainized, but it's like from a humanizing perspective too. If you start your own business, I mean, it's just you, right? There's more pressure on you to an extent, and there's no guardrails. You're just kind of like, I don't know, is this enough? What's enough? How's enough? Is this enough success? Is working 24 hours enough yet? Like, where does it end, kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One thing actually, which really helped me was my Whoop. I don't know if you heard of Whoops, right? The thing on your wrist, heard of it, right? So it's this band on your wrist. So it measures all of your vitalities, your sleep, your rest, your workout, and it literally tells me, Michael, you have had nowhere near enough sleep. Like, go to bed. Like it's great. So that's helped kind of put those measures in place.
Yeah, for sure. I think we have Fitbits over here in Toronto, which are similar, but I don't know. Everybody's got a different vitality watch that tells you what to do, or when you're being unhealthy. Marsha, me too. How are you guys? Any closing thoughts on this topic? I feel like we've solved it, right? Like no one's burnt out anymore. There's world peace. The tariffs are over. But if there's anything you'd like to add, please.
I love it. We have solved it. Okay, that was a great conclusion to it.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. Marsha?
I would say look at your life in 7 areas: spiritually, mentally, physically, socially, emotionally, recreationally, and financially. And I look at them in that order specifically because I feel like if I put my spirit, mental, and physical health first, and then I take care of my social circles, my fun time, my recreation, then the finances will take care of themselves.
It's a brave thing to do that, though. You hear what you're saying, Marsha, from a lot of like life coaches, and you hear it from a lot of people who are very successful. But I do, and I've grappled with this as someone who has a numerous failed businesses under my belt before I started recruiting in the music business primarily, and in software. But it seems to be true. But I think that there's a lot of like fear, right? That if you stop working towards your career for 1 second, that's it. You're just going to lose it all and be homeless or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And usually what we need to do in those circumstances is look back and look at all the challenges you've come through and realize that you've always been okay, right? It's probably always worked out, and realize that the thing that you were holding on to so tightly and the worries that you had usually did not manifest. So when we can set that down for a minute and just say, okay, the world is not burning to the ground, right? And realize that if we start putting these other aspects of our life in proper perspective and make sure that we're getting some type of recreation in and we're paying to learn something new, because that keeps us expanding. And what I have found is that dance literally became the key that opened world travel for me, because I knew I could go on Facebook in any country, anywhere, put salsa class, Dublin, Ireland. I could find a class, I could go and show up. I would have a group of immediate friends that I was safe in. And it allowed me to open and expand myself in ways I never could have done that without a hobby that made me feel good and allowed me to get some exercise and let me turn off the phone for an hour and go dance, on the dance floor for an hour. So when we take care of those other parts of ourselves, it actually makes us better in everything else that we do.
Yep. Words of wisdom. It seems counterintuitive, though, right? Because when you're really burnt feeling, you're like, all I need to do is sleep or be alone or whatever. And it's like you get into this reward system where your reward is being alone or sleeping. It's not going to make you feel any better, too. It's weird to think that putting something else on your plate is actually possibly the solution to burnout. But if that thing gives you life, gives you inspiration, changes up your ideas, Michael, like you were saying, and me too, even just that fresh air that, instead walk away instead of just diving in or whatever else, that's more likely to help you combat burnout than just doing nothing.
Yeah, or doing more.
Yeah, doing more. Exactly.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone so much for being here. I'm loving these success and wellness panels. Would love to have you all on again in future. Thank you to everybody who commented. Love the participation. Love the sidebar panel going on in this whole thing. That is Recruiting EQ, and I hope to see all of you guys who are listening next week.
Thanks, Rick.
It's great.
Thank you guys.
Nice meeting everyone. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.